This is a map of the democracy index. The blue countries are the most democratic on the planet. According to the experts surveyed by The Economist, in these countries, people have the most rights and freedoms. What is interesting here is that in the modern realm of democracy in the United States, less than 100 years ago, 10% of the population had to ride separate buses and dine in designated restaurants, and their children to attend special schools. Imagine that an Olympic champion returns home to his homeland, and he is not allowed to go to a restaurant because of his skin color. This is not some kind of fiction, but a real story from the life of the legendary boxer Muhammad Ali. And probably it is no secret to anyone that on the way to their democracy, the United States has gone from slavery and the laws of racial segregation to massive protests for the rights of Afro-Americans. But what is most important is that the Civil War, the modern politics of diversity in movies and TV shows, and even the bowing of the knee before sports matches are very closely related to the struggle for equality and democracy. I will prove to you that there is no talk of any aspiration for justice here, that now, that hundreds of years ago, the world is ruled exclusively by money. And you will see for yourself when you listen to our amazing story. This is how the United States looked right after gaining independence from Great Britain. The former colonies became a country that was clearly divided into the North and the South. The reason for this division was that the climate in the North was harsh. The manual labor of hundreds of slaves was not very needed for this. Moreover, what could they do in winter when there is snow everywhere? Due to the low efficiency of agriculture, many residents of the northern states moved from their villages to large cities. New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, which grew very quickly. If the population of New York in 1790 was about 340,000 people, by 1820 it had increased by 1 million. And in these cities, not slaves were needed, but qualified workers who would stand up for the machine or sit in an office chair. Therefore, the northern states refused slavery one after another. For example, in the southern state of Virginia, by 1790, there were 290,000 slaves, but in northern Pennsylvania, there were only 6,000. But in the South, there was a completely different path. Slaves for the southern states were a vital capital because the plantations worked all year round, and mass manual labor was ideal for them. Moreover, tobacco at that time had a powerful competitor, cotton. It is this fiber that in the next decade will become the main raw material for the world textile industry. And just look at how, over the years, the production of cotton in the southern states has increased dramatically. From the middle of the 19th century and up to World War II, cotton was the main export product of America, on which the country earned billions of dollars. And if you suddenly do not know how cotton is produced, then look at its bush. Seeds are covered with white fiber, which is the basis of the future fabric. To get only 100 grams of pure cotton, you need to tear off about 50 seeds. And now imagine the hectares of plantations of these bushes under the scorching sun. It was on them that slaves in the southern states were engaged in manual cotton collection. And no other labor except slave labor at that time could not make cotton collection profitable for planters. And the whole irony is that with the increase in cotton production, more and more factories were built both in Britain and in the north of the United States, and they demanded more and more raw materials. That is, this is a vicious circle for slaves, which thousands of them brought to the cotton plantations of the South. Just to understand the scale of the cotton boom, the state of South Carolina in 1790 exported less than 10,000 pounds of cotton a year, and in just 10 years, only 20 million pounds. And this is not the end of the story. In the 19th century, the cost of cotton production was about 50 million pounds. And it is logical that while the North was developing industry, the planters invested all their resources in the purchase of slaves, on which the economy of the southern states was held. Even those rare technologies that broke through to the South led to even greater exploitation of slaves. Well, for example, it is not enough to collect cotton, it still needs to be cleaned. And when such a machine was invented, it accelerated the second stage of cotton production. But now slaves had to mine more and more raw materials, from which their number on the plantations increased annually by tens of thousands of people. So wait, what does the Civil War have to do with this? It seems that everything suits everyone. The North is developing due to industrial technology, and the South is developing due to slave labor on the plantations. But there was a problem in the diversity of these interests. Here you have a young industry developing in your country. Naturally, the product of competitors who have been on the market for a long time will be better. And if you compete honestly, then the buyer will choose not your machines, medicines, or furniture, but imported ones. They are more quality and perhaps even cheaper, and you will never go to this market. So for the victory in this competition, countries introduce customs duties so that the price of imported goods becomes higher, and the consumer finally buys domestic. And this is exactly what the United States government is doing in 1828. It increases import duties in order to fill its market not with European goods, but with American ones, which are produced by North factories. And in the following years, these border duties will grow to 50%. Well, who do you think in the first place suffered from this policy? Of course, the South, because it sold cotton and tobacco and bought tools, weapons, fabrics, and European delicacies for the money received. So despite the formal unity of the United States, economic interests, the interests of the North and the South of the country were so different that the Civil War became a matter of time. And the abolition of slavery will play an important role in this war, but not at all the one you might think of.